gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy. Remarkable?
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking about marketing lessons from Hades, the video game. With Director of Content Marketing and Integrated Campaign Strategy at Sumo Logic, Zoe, how are you?
I am living my best life. How about you?
Excited to chat. You and Meredith are neighbors, maybe. We don't know.
Maybe. Close enough.
And we're recording on a Friday. And wherever our audience is today, we send you a lot of Friday vibes.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. All the weekend energy.
That's right.
So today we're talking about Hades. We're talking about Sumo Logic. We're talking about marketing content as always. Why the heck did you pick Hades to talk about today?
So I'm a gamer. So when it was like, what's your favorite kind of media? That was like, well, obviously I have to be different and talk about a game instead of a show or a movie or something like that. So I had to pick a game. And then I was thinking about, I have so many favorite games. It's kind of like when people say, what's your favorite game or what's your favorite movie or something, it's impossible choice to make. But Hades just had so many marketing lessons that I was like, just thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, this will be a super fun, super easy conversation. Plus, I'm a huge fan of the studio that makes Hades. And I was just like, I listen to their soundtrack when I'm working sometimes. Like, I'm so into it. I was like, I could just say way too much for a podcast. So I was like, there'll be an abundance to talk about.
But before we get into Hades, tell us about your role at Sumo Logic.
Cool. So I'm the director of content marketing and integrated campaigns, which basically means like I like to joke that if it has words in it, it should come past my eyeballs. I run all things content. That's video, that's blogs, that's web copy, that's case studies, the occasional white paper, things like that. And then really making sure that that feeds the entire funnel for the integrated campaign. So everything kind of soup to nuts of thinking about what the product is making, how that ties into our content strategy, how that ties into our demand gen, and ultimately leads to deals, and then happy customers and how we make sure those customers stay happy, all with the power of content.
The power of content.
Yeah.
Meredith, what the heck is Hades?
So Hades is pure and simple, just a work of art.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
It's an award-winning video game by a studio called Supergiant Games, and you are playing as Zagreus, who's this teenage son of Hades, and he's trying to escape the underworld. And I read this write-up that was like, he's trying to escape his cold and distant father, who's, Lord of the underworld, and he's trying to reunite with his mother, Persephone, up above.
Welcome, my son.
Things with you and father, everything all right so far?
Things are good, Zagreus. I'm from Olympus. All the relationships I've ever known have been the complicated sort.
And it has fast-paced combat, there's amazing music, like Zoe mentioned, and beautifully crafted storytelling based on Greek mythology. And to me, the maker Supergiant Games is super remarkable because it's a small independent studio that started as a crew of just 7 people, and they're all still there, by the way. And it was founded in 2009 in San Francisco. And their goal is literally just making one awesome video game at a time. And Hades is only their 4th. So they really spend quality time with one big project at a time, making it just amazing. And on their website, it says, our ambition has remained the same through the years, to make games that spark your imagination like the games you played as a kid, which I really love because I feel like when you're a little kid, that's kind of when video games seem just like amazing and really make your imagination just go wild. And they describe Hades as a roguelike dungeon crawler. And I never heard like roguelike or roguelite. And Zoe, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was looking it up, it's like a combat-oriented game where you get stronger as you fight, but you will eventually die. But you also like carry forward that like strength and I don't know if you carry your weapons with you too, but it's something like that. Can you sort of clarify?
Yeah. So there was a real trend towards roguelike games. So there's roguelike and roguelite. And the distinction is like in the one, if you die, that's it. Like you're dead, you start over from scratch. And so every time you play, it's essentially the same, opportunity, the same possibility for you to have the gameplay experience and you as the player get better. And the other, which is what Hades is, you get actually like experience points or artifacts or weapons or certain things that you unlock over time so that the next time you play, yes, you as the player should hopefully get better over time, but also the tools and the equipment and like the experience and the spells or whatever it is, you also have access to better and better stuff as you play. But dying is inevitable. And so it kind of makes it like failure is inevitable and you don't feel so bad about it. You're kind of like, okay, I died. Yay. Now I get to spend these cool points that I accumulated. Or now I get to like do whatever like side quest or dialogue I got to unlock by getting as far as I did.
That's awesome. So you're not like all of a sudden you die and that's the end. Like
right. Exactly. Exactly. You get to like, you almost not look forward to it. You're still like, I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but there's something to look forward to of like, okay, well now I've unlocked this new capability or I can try it with a different weapon or, you kind of get a new shot at it, which can be exciting.
It sounds like there's like experimentation and things like that to see what works and what doesn't.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, to give listeners an idea behind like the idea of the game, you're defying the god of the dead, meaning your dad. You're just like rebelling against your dad.
You're just a teenager rebelling against your dad. Totally.
That's right.
Classic.
And the description was, as you hack and slash your way out of the underworld of Greek myth. So I love the way that they put that. And you can play it on different platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. You can also play it online through Steam. And so it's cool. You can pick and choose what works for you, whatever platform you have. From the makers of the game, they said, this time around, meaning when they were creating Hades, they said we wanted to make something that combined aspects of all the best ideas we'd picked up over the course of working on our 3 previous games, as well as delve into early access development for the first time. I wasn't familiar with early access at first. And so when they originally released Hades, it was in 2018 on the Epic Games Store. And basically, Zoe, what I didn't realize was that means it's still in active development. So they're basically using players as kind of like guinea pigs. Is that right?
Yeah, basically. They can release alpha or beta versions of the game. And people are just so excited to play and support them and help or whatever that they'll play even a buggy, glitchy version of what the game will eventually become. And then they give feedback. That's a big part of it is it's almost like a co-design, co-development process with your fans or with people who support you to say what did you think of this level? What would you have wanted to happen? I'm assuming you didn't want to encounter this bug or whatever it is. So it gives them real play experience and where they might find bugs without needing a whole team of QA testers, but also just lets them kind of interact with the customer or with the audience, the gamers themselves, and be oh, they really like this bit, but this bit didn't make sense or wasn't as compelling or whatever it might be.
Did you take part in early access for this?
I did not. So early access is typically only done on PC, and I don't generally play as many games on PC. I'm thinking about getting a Steam Deck just so that I can play more of my Steam games and more early access games. But I spent so many years as a game journalist and played review versions of games and early versions of games and stuff like that. I'm you know what? I'm going to be just a spoiled gamer and wait for the game to come out in its final polished form and enjoy that instead.
I agree. I like doing the final polished version the best. But that's so cool that you did game journalism.
I loved it.
Unique
I loved it.
She says so coolly and slyly.
So casual.
Yeah, just slip that right in.
Just slide that in. Before I was a content marketer, when I was a video game and tech journalist for many years. Yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
Amazing. So fun. A couple other things to share about this game. So they eventually rolled it out to all the platforms that I mentioned by 2021. Now there's even a mobile version, which I was curious about. And I mentioned it was award winning. The year, so 2020, I think was the year that it like actually came out after all the testing and everything. And it was recognized as Game of the Year by over 50 publications, which was like, holy smokes, this like tiny little studio makes this incredible game that's just getting all the accolades. But yeah, as far like I mentioned, that it's beautiful. Like the artwork feels to me like kind of like dark anime. The music is gorgeous. It was scored by Darren Korb, and they released a whole 2.5-hour soundtrack. And I started listening to it. It is so good. It's like cinematic. It could be like background music, like you were talking about, Zoe. And you can find that. I found it on YouTube, but you can find it on Steam and the Epic Game Store as well. And I think that's if you want to buy it. But there are other games for any listeners who are interested in playing like any of their games. There's Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre.
Each one is so different, by the way, Meredith. I have to jump in. Like each one is super different. So if you're like a hack and slash, like if you love the hack and slashy vibes, like Bastion was great for that.
Ooh, okay.
Really, really slick combat. All of their games had the soundtrack made by Darren Korb. So like if you love his music, like go play the other ones. I still listen to Transistor's soundtrack all the time because part of that storyline was like you're a singer whose voice is taken away. And so like each game is super different. One of them is almost like a soccer inspired game. Like it's really weird. The combat feels very much like you're playing soccer.
Wow.
So it's just like they're so unique and innovative with their gameplay. I love it. Love, love, love.
I was trying to figure out why they decided to make this one about like Greek mythology, because that seemed like a super interesting place to start. I don't know if you have any insight into that, but I couldn't seem to find anything on it.
I mean, I think it's just, so they had different like thematics over different games about like, not so much Greek mythology, but just like there were like fairy tale elements or story, like really strong narrative design. And I think Greek mythology, what was so cool in the gameplay, which I think is part of what inspired them, is like they've really leaned into just the character and personality of the different gods.
Alas, that you never got to know your brother Zagreus. Fine lad that he was. Determined lad. Didn't always get on with your father, but who does? I'm certain he fought Kronos just as bravely as he could.
So as you, as the rebellious teenager, kind of are rebelling against your dad, your aunts and uncles and cousins are trying to help you. And so like you'll get, Dionysus being like, want to get drunk, kid? And like helping you on your journey with like cool buffs and support things that are linked to these, kind of outrageous characters that these gods and goddesses were, Aphrodite, all of that, like all your favorite gods and goddesses show up as support characters in the game, trying to help you get out of the underworld.
Why, hello, gorgeous. You look like you can break some hearts even without my aid. Oh, your brother would be so proud, knowing you're fighting for your kin.
So yeah, definitely like, I think it leans into their character-driven stuff that if you're into it, you can really lean in and learn a lot about the characters and their interplay. But if all you want to do is hack and slash, like you can also totally skip all of that and just play the game.
Yeah, I feel like if you're not even into Greek mythology, like I feel like it'd be a cool way to learn about it. If that were your first touch point on that sort of thing, like you could learn so much just through gameplay. And I was thinking too about how to tie this into like content marketing. And if I were to take lessons from it myself, I was thinking like create content for different platforms, like both digital and physical, like Steam versus Xbox. Give your content a soundtrack, like create a world building through that, which I feel like they do really well. Retell a classic story in your own way, like the Greek mythology. I would never have thought about making it like an anime-ish video game. Gamify seems to be the obvious lesson. Co-develop with your users, I thought would be a super cool takeaway. I had a lot of takeaways from this one.
I know, you were deep in your bag for this
I
one,
love it. I love it.
You could tell that Meredith was in on this.
I love it. I'm so glad. I love it.
I was saying like combine all of your previous experience and learnings in your new content, like how they took everything they learned from the first 3 games, applied it to Hades. If you can, do one big project at a time so you can think through all the things and make it just really awesome. And then my last one was use a storyline that's like a tale as old as time, like a teenage boy rebelling against his dad. And so that was kind of my thinking. But so I'm curious what you think about like tying this into marketing and how you would do that.
Yeah. So going back to the whole, like, the fact that you're going to die, for me feels very much, I mean, I was joking around with one of my teammates actually about this when I told them I was going to come chat to you about this topic. And I was like, yeah, you just like die over and over again. They were like, yeah, that's marketing. I was like, no, wait, let me, but much more around this idea of like, you keep experimenting and you're going to fail and that's okay. But it, like, if I think about coming into you come into a new team or you come into a new product launch or you come into a new organization, whatever it might be, and you think you know how to play the game. You think you know what it takes to succeed, to beat the boss, whatever that is. And you do the run according to the way that you've done it, maybe in other roles or other companies, and you die, you fail. Like, it doesn't necessarily go 100% to plan. And that's okay. And then you get to like restart with a new weapon, a new strategy, a new approach, whatever that might be, and just kind of like pull it back together, like bring it back in to say like, okay, let's try it again. Let's run it again and see if we're successful this time. And that just feels so liberating almost. And then each time you learn and you grow and you do it better. So yeah, that for me is a big takeaway.
Let me give some additional sort of stats here.
Ooh.
Supergiant Games, first 3 games, Pyre, Transistor, and Bastion did basically like 5 mil, 10 mil, and 18 mil. Hades does 149
wow.
mil.
Love
10
it.
million copies sold. It retails for $24.99. You can get it where you get your stuffs. Hades 2 did only 50 mil.
It hasn't.
What's
like
up?
it's still new. It's not like fully released yet. I don't think Hades 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was only done 50 mil only. So far, with just shy of 2 million copies sold, retailing for $29.99. This is according to Gamealytic. And Hades sold over 1 million copies basically in the first, I think, year essentially. And it sold over 7 million copies on Steam alone. So again, like, this is not, this is not a AAA game. This is not a huge studio game. This is an indie game that has done more than the combination of the entire rest of their games times 3, essentially. And it's something super popular. And I think that like a few takeaways there that they got it right on their 4th go around. And not that the other ones were wrong. By the way, all of them are over 90% in terms of ratings. So, 90, 94, 95%, and this game won every award. But you heard them say that they took the pieces from their other games and sort of took their favorite things and put them into this one. And so you mentioned how different the genres are. And I just think that's super important, right? It's like I think that's the thing with content, is that you need to be able to work on different projects and work on different things and cobble together the best stuff and figure out what works and deliver something. But it all started with, the gameplay, which is what indie companies do, right? That's the most important thing to an indie company. I shouldn't say that, not exclusively, but like that's the most important part. Because if they get that wrong, nobody will play it, right? Which is a pretty big comparison to a bigger game company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally with you on that. Like, I think they've also, each game has been bigger or more ambitious than the one before. And I think Hades definitely is like way, way, way more ambitious than the ones before it. And so, it's a much bigger game. It's a much longer game. And so I can imagine that it like scratch the itch for more people. And also going back to what Meredith was saying, like it's a tale that people can relate to. If you're into Greek mythology, that's like a whole audience of people. If you identify with rebellious teenagers, like that's a whole category. So I think there's that category building as well, that as marketers, like if we think about our audience or our ideal customers, like touching people with more diverse backgrounds and all of that, like this kind of feeds on that as well. Like if you're just in it for the art style, if you're just in it for the gameplay, if you're just in it for the soundtrack, there's kind of something for everyone. And really taking it to that next level, that more ambitious level, clearly paid off for them.
Let's talk soundtrack, shall we?
Woo-hoo.
5 million people have listened to this soundtrack just on the YouTube video alone.
So nuts.
Of which, you're not going to believe this, Meredith. Stop me if you've heard this one. They didn't put ads in it. No Google ads. And the first comment on the YouTube video says, "No ads? Am I dreaming?" And it's 11,000 likes.
That's awesome.
Which is so good. And it's almost like they get it, right? It's like, oh, could we make a couple of ad dollars on people watching this? Sure. Or we can just put the links to how to play the game, or where people can actually play the games on Switch or Steam or Epic in the links. And probably if someone is listening to your soundtrack, they either already own your game or they're going to be more likely to buy it. You don't need to make some AdSense dollars off of the back of it.
Yeah. I love that.
But it's kind of it's like, this is like a non-obvious takeaway. And that's sort of why I said it. It's a very obvious takeaway where it's like, but how many times as marketers do we do something that is so backwards in the way that we are treating the person that is spending their time with us, right? Especially in content. We are like, oh, I'm going to invite you to do this thing, and then now I'm going to shove something else in your face. It's just like there's so many different things like that. But you can see that this studio, they get it. That's like the canary in the coal mine where you're like, oh, they didn't turn on ads on their YouTube video. Of course they didn't. Because that would annoy their customers. That would annoy their base. Like, that's an annoying thing that someone doesn't need to do. I would bet a lot of those 5 million listeners are probably, some of the millions and millions of people who have bought the game. And maybe not exclusively, obviously, because Meredith and I listen to it. But I know we're more likely to go, buy the game. But I think it's just like, it's the little things sometimes that just show how you think about your community. And you just have to sort of be the obvious person that says, like, is this in the best interest of someone? Like, if we do an event, should we have a 45-minute sales pitch at the top? Maybe not. Maybe that's not in the best interest of the event.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so compelling because I agree with you. Like, if you think about your real user journey, and whether it's someone who's bought the game or someone who already loves your game and is like, what was that song? I loved that song. What was the thing when like this and this happened, and wants to go find it again and listen to it again. And then they remember that they loved that moment in your game and they want to go play your game again and pay for your downloadable content or extra stuff, or pay to own the soundtrack instead of having to listen to it on YouTube, even though it's free. It's like, it's almost, I feel like with certain studios, Supergiant included, I almost look for ways to give them more money. I'm like, I have gotten so much value from what you have given me. Like, please, can I give you more money? Like, please, can I buy your game on another platform? Or can I buy your soundtrack? Or get your fan art or something so that I can tell this studio, like, please keep doing what you're doing because I love it so much.
So this is going to be my next point. We've done 2 episodes recently on vinyl records, and this incredible stat, and I just did my newsletter about it, that 50% of people who buy vinyl records don't own a record player. Like, and that's
wild.
I know, right? Isn't this crazy?
It's crazy.
Right? So if you take that approach to all of your marketing, right, where it's like, could you make stuff that's something that's so good that they would want to do it, even if they're not getting the value from the thing that you think that they're getting the value from, right? It's like, what could Hades do? Or sorry, what could the Supergiant do to the fans that could make them more excited? And it's like, I was thinking, like, I wonder if they did a vinyl record of this album and they sold it for $50 for twice the price of the actual game. Yeah. How many people would buy that who don't own a record player?
I mean, I would probably buy it, and I don't own a record player. I would absolutely count me in. I would love that.
Yeah. And my buddy is a huge fan of Hades. So like, I would buy that for him for Christmas because I don't know what to freaking buy him for Christmas ever. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the sort of stuff that I think is so, like, when you look at it from a B2B marketing perspective, where you're like, what are the little secrets and things that we could figure out there that relates that to the fact that you said, I wish I could give them more money because they've created so much value for me. Yeah. The $24.99 that you spent on that game, you have gotten far more value out of it than just that.
Yeah, exactly that. I've gotten so many hours of gameplay that it's like, absolutely, I would like to give them more money. And I want them to also feel that appreciation. Like, I follow them on any social platform they'd come, you know what I mean? Like, where can I tell them that I love them? And this podcast is another example right here, right now. Like, just spreading the word of like, this is such a great game and such a great studio. And really just so focused on giving people, I love the idea that they only make one game at a time, that they're so focused and it comes through in the work. Like, it's so polished, it's so well made and clearly like made with love that transfers to me. And I think, you know, if we tie it back to that B2B marketing, B2B, you know, I think about like working in tech, working in SaaS, like how do you give that moment of delight where it's not just like, oh my gosh, your company saved me this amount of money or whatever, or like this and this tool is worthwhile for me. But it's like, how do you make it that people are actually happy to use your product and excited to use it, or, you know, have that sense of not just like customer loyalty, but like advocacy. They want to tell other people, like, you will not believe how cool this thing is.
Well, what was interesting when we first started talking to you, Zoe, that the first thing you said about this game was, oh my gosh, I got the best ROI on this game. That was what I got. The ROI is off the charts. Oh wait, no, you didn't say that because nobody ever talks like that in real life.
Right.
You're not like, oh, the ROI on these sneakers, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, it's like, that's the sort of thing, right? It's like the way that you said it, of like the love they put into it and the care they put into it, of like, if you were really honest with yourself, not you, but the royal we, is our marketing team putting care and love into our stuff?
I feel like you can tell if they do. I mean, I almost feel like not to be the AI, bringing AI into a conversation. It feels like we have to all the time now. But like, I feel like that's the difference between something that's made handcrafted by a human versus an AI, is like there's love and attention when you make it yourself versus when you're just like, here, robot, make this for me. I think that's a piece of it. But I mean, it's also, even when I edit stuff that someone wrote, like I can 100% read if they were busy, if they were distracted, if they gave it, you know, a 50% effort, like, okay, fine, I need to get this done. Here you go. Which, fair, we all work. Yeah. We all, you know, sometimes that is what you're going to, the amount of energy you can put into something. But it's always apparent when someone actually cared and put time and energy and effort into something, even if they're not as skilled or as proficient as someone who maybe is more proficient and more skilled, but put less attention into it. You know, I think it really shows.
I always go back to the Brian Chesky from Airbnb does this great exercise called the 11-star guest experience. And I brought it up before on this, but I love this. I love the exercise. And basically, I'll say, so he sat down with his team. He's like, what is a 1-star guest experience? Then what's a 2-star? What's a 3-star? What's a 4-star? What's a 5-star? It's like, okay, a 5-star is, you know, you show up, it's immaculately clean. Your favorite snacks are there. You know, there's tickets to a show that they know that you like that show and they're sitting there waiting for you, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, what's 6-star? What's 7-star? What's 8-star? And then you get to the 11 is like Bruno Mars picks you up in his private plane, you know, takes you whatever. And then you go, okay, let's go back to the 5-star. It's like, well, I guess it's not hard to get their favorite snacks in the door, huh? And I think about that from a marketing perspective, that it's like, you know, you can tell that the team at Supergiant is trying to give an 11-star experience to their customers, right? In this game, they're going to put everything that they can, you know, into that. And they're going to go to, you know, to do that. And that's their product. So it's different. But marketing, it's like, but ours is a product too, as Emily Kramer would say. We are a product too, right? And so we have to put the same care and craft into the customer experience, into the buying experience, into all of that. And when you feel the edges, it doesn't feel right. And that feels like a 3 or a 4-star experience. But like, and to say like, oh, well, what's our content experience? Is it 5-star? Maybe that's the way to think about it. But I think it's more just like, are you truly doing the things that are in the best interest of the audience to learn, to grow, to improve in their careers, to find the right answers to the solutions that they're looking for, whether that's you or something else. are you really doing that? Or are you doing it just in service to yourself? And like, at the end of the day, like, I would say like, buy our crap. That's not really a great message to hear over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about it a lot so one of the things that I pride myself in kind of in the way that I work, but also hopefully in the content that I create and the work that I do is, I use the sparkle emoji, and it's kind of a shorthand for, I want it to be joyful. I want it to be radiant. I want there to be delight. And taking that even a step further, it's like, I want to make heavy work feel light. Because we all have things that are heavy that we have to do. Like we all have hard work that needs to be done. And I want that to feel light or easy or joyful. I can't make the work go away. I can't make it like not have to be done, but I can hopefully make it feel a lighter, more enjoyable experience. And the same with like consuming marketing content. Because if you're shopping for a B2B tech SaaS tool, like that, no one wakes up on a Tuesday and is like, I'm going to go shop for a log analytics tool. Like that's not real. No one does that. But they get assigned a task or they assign it to themselves where they're like, oh crap, we keep facing the same problem over and over again. I need a solution. I need to go figure out who the best tool is. And hopefully they find, the Sumo Logic content and they're like, oh, these people get it and they're kind of fun and they're interesting and like, let me keep learning more about them, and hopefully make that shopping experience a little bit easier, a little bit lighter.
Another B2B takeaway for me from Hades is, Meredith, you touched on it, the blending of genre or the retelling a classic story that you say, someone was sitting there and said, hey, Hades got a kid. I've seen Greek mythology.
Yeah.
I bet you he's pretty pissed at his dad because like probably he's not the world's best dad. And they're like, okay, let's make a game about this, right? And like that stuff is so easy to do. And I think that, it's the combining of, a classic story that's one way and then, taking a sort of a modern trope, but also a very sort of evergreen trope of the, the angsty teen. And I just think that like so much business stuff, you could tell more stories like that and just blend them together. And like, you could tell a story about, what if Persephone was a CMO, or you could tell, and her husband was a CIO and like, they gotta do whatever. Or could you imagine if your partner was an engineer and you were in marketing? I mean, could you imagine those two minds meeting every day? So anyways, it's that sort of stuff that I think is just, it's a great, when you have a blank page and you're trying to figure out what to do, go grab one of your favorite stories.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much because I do think it's, they clearly had a good time with it. They clearly were like, let's see if we could get Achilles in here. What about Eurydice? Like, what about, they just brought so many characters that you knew were going to be fun right off the bat. And then people that maybe you hadn't heard of, like Meredith was saying, if you're not super deep into Greek mythology, like, it made me Google, like, who is that character then? Like, who keeps killing me in this, like, second boss stage battle? Like, why do I keep dying to them? Stuff like that I think is super, like, it opens you up to learning about new things that maybe you wouldn't have even thought of or found interesting before. So, yeah, I definitely think that kind of blending of worlds makes that possible for you. And I mean, it's something I see with, kind of bringing it back to that B2B marketing space as well. It's one of the reasons, one of my favorite kinds of content to make are case studies, because like we get to make our customer shine and tell their story. And that always makes me feel better is I'm kind of like, I know our story backwards and forward. What's your story? Like, why are you winning with this? Why are you succeeding with this? And being able to tell something cool that they figured out, a way they're using, our product that we didn't even think about that's kind of interesting or cool. Like, I just feel like it's when you kind of pull multiple stories together that you're able to be like, oh, okay, cool. Like there's more depth here. There are layers.
I think you're the first person said that you love telling case study stories that we've had on here. But I'm with you. Meredith knows this. I always, every time we have an episode, I always think about new ways to tell case stories. I'm like, you could do it like this. You could do this. You could do, whatever. I think it's like the most ripe area for innovation in marketing by far, hands down, no second place, telling customer case stories better.
Yes, I love that. I mean, and I think, so this is also how I do sales enablement. This is how I do even working with our product marketers, working with our product managers. It's one thing to kind of be like, we need to make sure there's a dashboard that does X, Y, and Z and product functionality that does ABC. Fine, whatever, cool. It's so different to be like, okay, Ulta Beauty is getting ready for Black Friday. Black Friday is coming, whether they're ready or not. How do they prepare? And what do they do for all the people buying lipstick, me included? You know what I mean? We're all going to be logging on. We're all going to be buying lipstick and mascara on in the same 3-day window. How do they make sure that when that spike of traffic comes, they're ready and they have infrastructure and they make sure they're not accidentally giving away free product because of a glitch in their code, or they, have a checkout process that's completed in the 7 seconds it takes before I can reconsider if I really needed that extra 7 lip glosses. Whatever it is that they need to make sure they can have a checkout experience that is faster than impulse shopping reconsiderations can take place. That might be their KPI. And how do we make that possible? And so that's kind of where my brain goes in that storytelling is I think about, they're obviously thinking of their customers, but if they're our customer, how do we tell that story of being and this is how they're superheroes. This is how they can do, this blah, blah % spike over the holidays, or, deal with, this seasonality that's unheard of. You think about gaming companies that launch a new game and 1 million people log on at the same time to play the new game, that, your servers have to be ready and not fall over. How do you do that? How do you kind of flex to that? And then, 2 weeks later, when half of them are gone and you're like, okay, bring it back down. How do you adapt to that fluctuation? And telling those stories is so much more interesting than being make sure there's a dashboard tracking cart size. That's not as interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And you have some amazing customers at Sumo Logic. And I know you can't tell all of their stories all the time, just all of us do, but you all have some amazing things there. And then that's another level of complexity where it's oh my gosh, if I could tell the story about this customer where they're doing something that's every single person, in whatever field would knows this customer, knows this logo, probably is using, their product, and we can't tell that exact story. So how do we get creative and figure out a way to tell it?
Yeah. And I mean, we have some case studies that we've anonymized, where the customer is open to having their story told, but maybe not with their name. And then also just working closely with them in terms of really collaborating when we tell the story. So, if we do get permission to use their logo, really making sure that they're comfortable with the story they're telling, especially around, so Sumo Logic has an observability side of the house and a security side of the house. I mean, it's all one house, but, whatever, the kitchen and the living room together in an open plan kind of vibe. But it's that kind of thing of no one wants to tell a story. We used to have terrible cybersecurity and then we got Sumo Logic. No one wants to talk about a before state that was bad because everyone wants to be secure all the time. And so it's how do you tell it in a way that doesn't paint such a bleak before picture to make you look better after? And how do you kind of weave things together to be I would love to be able to tell the stories of oh my gosh, you almost got breached and then we fixed it. That would be a cool story to tell, but you can't say that. And so how do you work with your customers to get that comfort level and that trust where then they're okay, we can't tell that story, but let's tell this other story that we are more comfortable telling, and kind of weaving that together. And also making sure that it's compelling to the reader. I mean, I might be super happy to geek out about so Ulta Beauty, that is one of our customers. That is one of the stories we get to tell around, Black Friday and around all of those things they've let us tell. But, another customer is Samsung, and they have their voice assistant. So kind of oh no, I'm going to activate her, but Alexa, their version of that in the Samsung universe. And just thinking about the scale of it. And so it's 35 terabytes of data a day that they're ingesting into Sumo Logic from this voice assistant. And I just think about like the amount of times that I ask my voice assistant, like, is this celebrity dead? Is, what are the measuring spoons like, or whatever, like, how many teaspoons goes into this? Like, whatever it is. But you think about like a company that's built on that amount of data and processing that and answering those questions that then one day might be able to tell me unprompted, like, it seems like you're baking that banana bread again, just so you know it's 2 teaspoons. Like, how much more would I love that voice assistant? Like, how much more would I rely on it if it could predict those things, which is possible when you're able to keep that data, retain that data, learn from it, all of that. So there's just some cool stories that we can tell the more that we work with our customers and understand their use cases as well.
I love it. Alexa probably thinks that you're a mortician. Like, why is she always asking for dead people?
Always. And it's always Dick Van Dyke. Like, let's be clear. It's always like, is he still alive? He is. He is.
Yeah. And actually, funny you should mention that. You should hear a knock on your door. He's coming on the podcast.
That
would be an 11-star experience right there.
Okay, what else? Any other stuff on Hades or stuff that we didn't talk about or lessons from Hades?
I think I touched on it. I think the main thing is really just don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of trying new things. Like, I remember the first time I did like my first run through Hades, I was like, well, I'm always like a stabby person. Like, I want the little short daggers. I want to just like, that's my gameplay style. That's what I'm going to do. Stab, done. And I know I look it as well. But then it was like, okay.
Oh, we know.
Oh, you know. And then it was like, obviously I died because you die in Hades and that's okay. And I failed. And then eventually I was able to unlock a bow and arrow. And I love a bow and arrow in a game. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is the weapon. This is how I'm going to beat this game. And I played with the bow and arrow and I was great at it. But then I got to a certain boss and I died again. And it was like, okay, back to the daggers. And then it was like, okay, let's try the sword and shield. And just not being afraid to experiment, not being afraid to fail, I think is such an important marketing lesson, because you're going to have some risks that are going to be great and you're going to take some risks that are going to just completely flop. And that's okay. Like, that's how we learn. That's how we try new things. Something that worked in one place might not work in another, and vice versa. You might say like, I learned this before, like this doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. You tried in a new market. You tried at a new company. You try it with a different channel and suddenly it works. And you're like, okay, I was wrong. Like, let's test it. Let's try it. Let's keep learning and growing. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from the game, is just like, when you think you have it figured out, like, just be prepared to fail and figure it all out again.
Such great advice. I think that it's such a logical conclusion, as we mentioned, that that we all need to embrace it. That it's like that campaign, that thing, that piece of content, that whatever it is at some point it's gonna, what is it? Fatigue. It's gonna decay. Whatever. Or it's not. That's one other thing we've talked about a lot on this show, is like, they could keep running, most interesting man in the world ads for all time, and they're still going to be funny and good.
Yeah. I mean, I still keep going back to Hades with the stabby daggers. Like, that's still always at least one run that I'd try is like, okay, let's try it again with the daggers. So like, sometimes you are just good at the thing you're good at, and that's okay. And you can keep going back to that.
Oh man, that is so funny and a great image. Yeah, just a couple of questions about Sumo Logic before we get out of here. Yeah, what's your sort of, your overall overarching sort of branding and content strategy summed up in a minute here?
Oh, sure. 1 minute. No problem. So one of the things that I've really been playing with a lot recently is this idea of humor. And so, the Sumo Logic story, the narrative, our tagline, all that sort of stuff it's not just about like, okay, find the problem, fix the problem, or insights to action, or whatever it is, but doing it fast. And so the speed element is super interesting to me, because how do you convey speed when everything is fast online? You don't want to show something being slow and then fast, because people just get irritated. So how do you do that? And the thing that I've really honed in on is humor, and not slapstick, not over the top, like really having it almost like a wink moment, that feeling like, ooh, I caught that joke. Ooh, I got that one. Makes people feel fast. Like it makes them feel like they're quick or they're witty or whatever it is. And like that experience of getting the joke makes you feel like you're fast. And so that's kind of something that I've been playing with a lot in our content, is adding humor, but making it something that speaks to our audience and speaks their language, and also isn't so overt that like anyone would get the joke, but make someone feel like they're an insider, like they get it, like they're quick. So that's something that I've been playing with.
I love that. It is and Meredith knows this, that I rarely explain a joke, and I often say things that are a joke that go over people's heads.
So niche. Yeah, I love it.
No one would ever get it. I'm not even, it's a joke for me. But anyways, we did a ton of that when we made Murder in HR, and we did a ton of that in the Hacker Chronicles, and we did a ton of that in Scam Hunters. And there's all sorts of little Easter eggs and things for people in the industry, for people outside of the industry, for people, definitely for millennials, lots of millennial humor. And I think that stuff, variety is the spice of life. But I think that stuff really works well and just shows the craft, shows that you care, shows that you can really understand who you're trying to talk to. And humor just goes a long way, right? I'll have a quick anecdote. I went to the high school performance. My niece was in the high school performance of Chicago 2 weeks ago, and it was very fun. And everyone did fantastic. But there was one, it's high school theater. There was one gripe that I have with my producer's hat on, that the amateur actors didn't know when they couldn't hit their mark and say their line and effectively get the joke out. Like it wasn't like the joke would have landed if they could have just said their line correctly. But they kind of all struggle with that, or they sort of muffled it or whatever. But you have to know, when you're the person who comes in at the very end of the scene, you're sitting on this big joke, and it's like, you just need to face the audience and say the words. Mm-hmm. And like, that's good enough. You know what I mean? Like the joke will do all the work for you, right?
Yeah.
And in B2B marketing, rounding into my point, that we never create the space for that to happen because we're too scared to put a joke into anything. And so it's like, if you have a mechanism that will allow that, then you can do it. And I'll give an example. We do like silly drops and bits and stuff like that in shows that we create for our customers. And I always use this example that you might have a host who's not funny at all, I fancy myself to be funnier than I am. But my other show, Pipeline Visionaries, is definitely more serious than this one. This one's obviously more silly. But I find myself to be a bit dry on that show at times. But we add in all of these little drops and silly things. We do the trust tree, and it's like these different quotes and silly stuff. And, Will Ferrell, I thought we were in the trust tree in the nest, are we not? And so anyways, by giving space for that, it just shows a level of craft and commitment to the audience that goes a long way. And now all of a sudden this show, which inherently is not that funny, now someone else is doing the joking on my behalf. And it sort of takes the burden off of the host. And that's where just like making the space for the joke, it's like just making it is good enough. It doesn't have to be funny. It's like just making it is good enough in B2B content. Hopefully it is, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think just having that bravery, the courage to be like, I know this is serious business. I know this is like important work that we're doing, but also let's leave some space to have a little bit of fun. Let's leave some space for a little bit of humor. I love that.
All right. Anything else we missed on Hades or on some of the cool stuff that you're doing at Sumo Logic? I know you have tons of things going on at sumologic.com. But yeah, perhaps favorite campaign?
Oh my gosh, this is like picking my favorite game all over again. How do you pick a favorite among so many? I am really enjoying video at the moment. I will say, I feel like any content marketer, blogs were my first love. No, there is a strong pull for me towards the written word, and blogs and case studies and all of those things are super important to me. But I'm really having a lot of fun with video. I am enjoying the versatility. And also just the way that I can reuse certain elements in other things. So, something that works really well in a video can also work really well in like a presentation. So you can have a video component that then becomes part of, a presentation that's used at like sales kickoff, which then means it makes its way into the sales pitch deck, which then means it makes like that iconography maybe gets echoed into an infographic or gets reused somewhere else. So I'm just really enjoying the way that video is kind of flexing at Sumo Logic at the moment and really having some fun with that. And also just like I get to do content work that isn't necessarily something I thought I would get to do, like direct voiceover and like get on a call with someone who's clearly professional at this and just be like, read this script that I wrote and now do it like a different way and now emphasize this and let me explain why we wrote that and try it with this, like stuff like that, when did I imagine I would get to be like a director? But I get to be a director and that's super fun.
Werner Herzog said, the poet must not avert their eyes. And I think about that. I've been like obsessed with this quote. It's so good. He's talking about why he loves trash TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
why
love
he watches it, which is amazing. But I feel that way about the written word and video and AI and all these other things, which is like, if you're a writer and you love the written word and you love to consume the written word and you love to write the written word and you love to do those things, that's totally fine. But you can't bury your head. If you want to speak in the language of the world that is around you, you need to see how other people are creating in the way that they are doing that, right? So I think that, my piece of advice on that is that if you want to be a producer, if you want to be a storyteller in today's modern age, it's like you have to embrace the tools or not that people are using. But yeah, I think that's, if you want to continue only doing things in written words, you just might not reach as many people as you perhaps would have if you want to tell it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting. I think about that in the context of like channels as well. Like everybody's always like, we need to be on all the social networks. We need to be on all the platforms. We need to be everywhere. And I think about it in the context of like Twitter, which I will still call Twitter from back in the day that I loved. Like Twitter used to be my favorite social network. And then it became what it is now. And I am now on Blue Sky. And it was really interesting, like this debate about would Blue Sky ever become that kind of like virtual town square that Twitter once was? Like, is it ever going to be that kind of have that universality versus a platform maybe like TikTok or whatever? Like, are people now so video oriented? Can we return to a platform that's much more written word oriented? And it's something I follow and I'm interested in. I think there's a reason why successful publishing endeavors have all of it, have video and audio and written word, so that it's kind of like take your pick, like consume it how you want to consume it, versus saying like we're only going to be video and we're only going to be that. Like I think having that diverse portfolio is so key now because people expect to get the content and don't really think about the form factor the same way they used to. It's not like I go looking for news on video. I'm like, I want the news. Am I going to read it? Am I going to listen to it? Am I going to watch it? I don't really know, but like, I want to know what's happening in this specific story.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining the show. Wonderful having you on. For our listeners, go to sumologic.com. Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
I'm slowly attempting to be an influencer on LinkedIn. Not really. Influencer sounds gross. You can follow me on LinkedIn for, random hot takes. And hot takes aren't even a thing. Random opinions and thoughts and musings. And thank you so much for having me. This really was way too much fun.
Awesome. Take care. Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.